Support for this video comes from Manscaped, the official electric razor of the UFC and our go-to for men's grooming tools. Manscaped has forever changed the grooming game with their Perfect Package 3.0. This kit comes with Essential Lawnmower 3.0, a waterproof cordless body trimmer, and a ton of other liquid formulations to round out your manscaping routine. This third generation trimmer features skin-safe technology. Now manscaping accidents are a thing of the past. When you are Manscaped, you look and feel better in and outside of the octagon. The Perfect Package also comes with a pair of patented high-performance, reduced chafing Manscaped boxer briefs. Promo code Chael will get you 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com just by knowing the promo code Chael. And thank you, Manscaped, for supporting mixed martial artists worldwide. I'm going to do something right now called burying my lead. I'm going to give you a preface before I give you my point, which is the opposite of way you should discuss anything. None of what I'm about to say is to kick or second guess anybody, but this is a post-fight conversation. So whenever you're having a post-fight conversation, all you can do is look back and think of and discuss what could have been. Whether it was stylistically, what could have been done different to get a different outcome. Or in this case, the weigh-in is still very relevant. When you're trying to guess what could have been, the weigh-in is very relevant. So let me start with it, but I don't want any part of this to sound negative. Because this was not a negative moment. This was an absolutely fantastic moment. And very reminiscent of Usman versus Covington in that the number one thing that we found at the end of this contest wasn't who was first and who was second. The number one thing that we identified is that we had previously identified the right two guys. No question when you get done watching Usman and Colby, you have found the two baddest dudes in the world. No question when you get done watching Stipe and Daniel, you put the right two guys in there. It's one of those things. So we have to back up, though, to the weigh-in. I can't let this go. Daniel weighed in at 236 pounds, which is the exact same thing that he weighed in his second fight with Stipe. The big question becomes when we're armed with the fact that he had cut weight to make the 136 for the second fight with Stipe. We still do not know why he cut weight. He did not want there to be visually a discrepancy between their two weights for whatever reason. However that made him feel or however that presented within his approach, that's what happened. And we know that as a fact because Andy Foster in California weighs the athletes in the second day, fight day. Now, it doesn't matter what you weigh. Andy just takes notes on that. Daniel weighed 248 the next day. A heavyweight who is 30 pounds under the agreed upon limit would not gain any weight from day to day because you gain weight through rehydration and nothing else. A heavyweight who is 30 pounds under would never need to rehydrate unless he cut weight. I'm spelling out what seems to me to be very obvious. If it's not obvious to you, though, then perhaps I'm condescending. But to put an exclamation point on that perspective is Stipe, his opponent. I'm going back to the second fight. Stipe, his opponent, who weighed in at 230 pounds, weighed in with Andy Foster the next day at 230 pounds. Your weight would not move at all. And if you come to me and go, a guy's a half a pound or a guy's same thing, right? 12 pounds, not the same thing, which means Daniel dehydrated. That's fine. But it happened. And it was a point of interest. One of the keys to going up to heavyweight for most athletes or changing weight classes is that they would not have to put the taxing part on their body of dehydrating, rehydrating. So the fact that Daniel did that is of question. The question is very simple, which is why. There's no wrong answer to that, but we're still left at why. That becomes relevant because Daniel had told us before this fight, told us three things, and really only three things. Point number one, I am going to take Stipe down nonstop. And when I take him down, he will never get up. I am 5 takedowns away from reclaiming my world championship. Great strategy. One thing that he told us. Second thing he told us is that in the second contest, he got a little bit tired. One way he was going to combat getting tired was to bring his weight down, which brings you to point number 3, which is he said he would be south of 240. So when he gets on the scale at 236, that is very different than the second fight if and only if he was fully hydrated. If his natural body fat had come down, his natural weight had come down, therefore he is going to get into the ring at north of 240 as he weighed in at. It's very relevant. And you're seeing it right now with Derek Lewis by example. Derek Lewis does not have a new training regimen. He does not have new coaches and a new way of viewing the sport, and therefore he's got this new outlook within his performance. He's just taking some weight off. And everybody has a number. And heavyweights would be very normal, even right, to look at that number as whatever the commission said and then be under it. Oh, commission says I can be 265. Anything under 265, boom, there's my number. That's one way to look at it. But again, if you look at what Derek Lewis is doing, he's going, no. I don't just need to beat the 265. I need to pull this down so I can move a little better and increase my endurance. Tie that in with Daniel. See him get on the scale at 236. All the weigh-in is greatly, aside from a protocol. It's an ultimate chance to do the old adage of read a book by its cover. You got to take a look at both of these athletes and then you get to judge them. Okay, this guy looks more in shape than he did last time, or he looks less in shape than he did last time. And then you start to form your opinion from there. And in all 3 of their contests, after the weigh-in, the line moved. The line for Daniel Stipe part 1 was 2.5 to 1 favorite Stipe when they went, but there was a narrative going around that Stipe is going to just be too big. Period. End of story. Well, Daniel weighed in more than Stipe. All of a sudden that narrative's gone and the money starts coming in on Daniel. You go to their second fight, Stipe weighs in 11 pounds less than he did for the previous one. That was very concerning. The line moves again against Stipe, which would make it appear that it went in favor of Daniel. Then you see the third weigh-in. The line moved the least in the third fight after the weigh-in of any of the contests, but it did move because Daniel did make his mark of south of 240. All right, so there's a story there. There's something relevant to be made of the weight more than just what I'm making of. So when it comes fight night and Daniel gets in the ring, it is very obvious that he cut for the weigh-in. What isn't as obvious, because this wasn't under Andy Foster's jurisdiction, is what exactly does he weigh? There was no second day weigh-in. We'll never know the answer to that, but I will tell you he was a lot closer to 250 than he was to 236. Question starts to become why. Now, the main reason Daniel wanted to take weight off, and this is according to Daniel, he's right on this, but these aren't my words, these are Daniel's, is it would just increase his endurance. He's right. Now, that wasn't a factor in this third contest. Daniel's endurance did just fine. No problem there. So he found a way, likely through mental toughness and extra cardio training, to extend that match. So how much of a dialogue do you want to put on the weight? Very hard to quantify that, but if you come to the conclusion that there should be no emphasis put on the weight, you would be in disagreement with Daniel himself. There is a reason he cut the weight. There is a reason that he wanted to give a certain appearance and a certain perception. My logical conclusion, though not necessarily right, it's just my conclusion, is because he knew it was important that he was south of 240. Instead, he came in just south of 250. So there's something to be made of that as you look back. When you look at the fight itself, you do have to look at the 3 things that Daniel said, and we're going in descending order, but he had 2 pieces on the weight, which we've covered, but he had one piece on the X's and O's of the fight itself, which is I'm going to take him down and he's never going to get up. My belief going into that as a guy that's standing back and watching the whole thing is you're going to have a really hard time taking him down, but you are right on the second part. He's not going to get up. You're too big and too good in that position. You will keep Stipe down. You will win that round and you will do some damage and you will change Stipe, but you got to get him there first. And I'm not buying into this idea that you could just go out and do that all night long or even once per round. That's going to be hard. Stipe's hard to deal with. But should you get him there, yeah, you're likely to keep him down. Well, okay, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at how that played out. Very first round, Daniel gets in on that single leg. He finds a way on top of Stipe. Problem, Stipe gets up. So the plan worked 50%, right? 50% of the time, it worked 100% of the time, but it worked halfway. Stipe got back up, so now Daniel is forced to compute the math right up here, because as a fighter, you're always taking inventory. As an athlete of any kind, you're always taking inventory. How do I feel? How do I think he feels? What is the score and how much time is left? And your strategy is going to change constantly within that formula. So Daniel, it looked like he took him down with some effort, but fairly easily. He went for one shot, one attack, and he found it. Generally, you're going to have to put 2 and 3 attacks together. Daniel went for one. He got some resistance, but he also got what he was looking for. The other side of the coin is Stipe popped back up. So now all of a sudden, is the juice worth the squeeze? Is it worth using that energy to get a takedown to not be rewarded by keeping him there? That's the math and the computation that has to be done. Daniel deduced no. It is not worth it. Not only did he never take Stipe down again, he never attempted to. Those are two different conversations. Should have he attempted to take Stipe down and failed, we're having a totally different conversation than the one we are having, which is he never attempted it again. So again, in a post-fight looking back, you're left with why? I feel as though I have the answer. I know what I saw in the first contest, second contest, and in this contest, which is he didn't see the opportunity. Stipe was doing a good job moving his feet. Stipe does a good job of sticking something for you. You have to see a shot. You have to see it. And it's a split second for a trained wrestler. But it's still it still has to happen. When Stipe's keeping something in your face, can't see it. When Stipe's moving his feet, you can't see it. When Stipe's not locking up with you, and he did not lock up with Daniel until the 5th round, you're not seeing it, and now you're not even feeling it. Just makes it tough. Just makes it tough to close that distance and make that big spurt of energy. Okay. They trade eye pokes. Eye pokes, big part of the story. Stipe came out after the fact and said the eye poke didn't affect me at all. Didn't like it in the moment, but it had no long-term effects. Daniel came out and said I couldn't see for 2 rounds. Very relevant. However you decide to put that into the fight, it's very relevant. And I've heard some people even say, was this a just victory? There was an unjust, illegal technique done, and therefore does it negate the victory? And before we get off the ground on that, let's stop that right where it's starting, okay? Just versus unjust is not how these contests are decided. Is it official or is it not yet official? That's how they're decided. The outcome of this contest is official. Close the book. Nothing left to Stipe here. See here. Congratulations, Stipe. That's how this works. I wasn't crazy about the idea of let's all lift Daniel up and blow some sunshine up his ass because he's such a great guy and now he's riding off to the sunset without not having what he wanted. What Daniel wanted out of his athletic career was nothing short of amazing. It was nothing short of selfish. 2 things you have to get very far in a combat sport. That is a singular sport without a team. The reason I say that, and I mean that in the utmost as a compliment, but he wanted to be champion of the world. We found out Saturday he's the second best. Not that we'll see a lot of title fights where whoever wins stays number 1, but whoever lost slides down to 8. Slides down to 9. Commonly falls down to 6. How do you go from 2 to 6? Well, all based on your performance. Had Daniel not retired, I would maintain for you he will come in at number 2 right now. One of the few guys who could lose a world title fight and not lose any ground. Which again, in recent memory, I can only compare to Covington. The one thing we found out in both the welterweight title fight and this heavyweight is we got the right 2 guys. Now we got to figure out the order, but we got the right 2 guys. So think about that if I'm right, which I am. That means Daniel Cormier could walk into any house on planet Earth, any neighborhood, any city, any state, any country, any continent, any way you want to do it, and be the baddest dude in the world as long as he doesn't show up at the Stipe residence. Do we really need to feel bad for him? Did a guy who, by the way, extended his own personal record. Most athletes, as they get older, don't get better at doing something. Let's say instead of judging this on a unified rules of a 10-9 must system, we look at this the way track and field looks at things, which is only about personal PR. It has nothing to do with can I beat the guy next to me. It has to do with did I get a personal record? Did I do my best tonight? Did I do better tonight than I did before? When you have an aging athlete, generally that answer is no. Sadly, as human beings, we just don't get better with time. We have a metric to look at. Before anybody thought Daniel should retire, including himself, before anybody thought Daniel finally got, caught up to by Father Time, we have the second contest. Daniel won 2 rounds according to a judge and made it less than 20 minutes. In this contest, he won 2 rounds according to a judge, and he went all 25 minutes. He did better in the third fight than he did in the second fight. Daniel Cormier is getting better with age. And if the book closes and somebody's going to cry in their beer over the second baddest dude alive, who, by the way, is in the over 40 club, who else is in that? Manning? Favre? Cormier? Who the hell else is in that? Jordan isn't in that. Lance Armstrong isn't in that. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad actually got up there. I have to get out a rule. I'd actually have to get out and look into that one a little bit, but I feel as though I've proved my point. There is nothing here for Daniel or any of us to look at on Daniel's behalf other than, dude, thank you for the memories. Congratulations on an amazing career, and what a way to go out. Many steps. Fighters are known for going in descending order. They started at main event and they went to co-main event. They slid down on the card, they ended up on the undercard, and they got washed out of the business. He went out at the highest level, minus a half an inch. A main event world title fight trilogy setting pay-per-view records, went the absolute distance with the absolute best of all time, and it was pretty competitive. Over 40. Very remarkable career. Very tough to come to the conclusion of, hey, Daniel, let me throw an arm around you and remind you about the good old days. The good old days were Saturday. The good old days were when you had one eye, never said a word about it till it was done, pushed through, didn't ask for breaks, asked nobody to feel bad for you, never fell down once, pushed and pushed and pushed, and had turned to the judges' cards. If that's a bad day in your career, you had a very special career.